What's going on, YouTubers, Mopar people? This is Mopar Man 1978. I'm out here working on the General Lee again, as you've seen in previous videos. Today I finally got everything bolted up from the back to the front. I got all the drive shaft, everything installed. Right now I'm just cleaning up some wires and putting some new electrical tape and stuff. As you can see, you got the transmission, all that stuff in. I can finally start on the engine parts themselves. And in the previous videos I was talking about the heads. Had the heads done. The machine shop guy said he inspected the surface of the heads. They're nice and flat. But one thing I wanted to do, because I'm getting ready to lap these valves, so lap the valves on all these heads and stuff like that, and put the new valve stem seals, whatnot, paint them before I get all the other stuff put on anyway. Get all the gasket surfaces prepped. And what I mean by prepped is most people would just go ahead and clean the surface, even though it's smooth, slick, whatever you want to call it. I don't do that. I actually take an orbital DA, a little electric powered DA, like you can buy from like Walmart or Menards or whatever. 5-inch Velcro back pads. I use 150 grit. I go over the entire surface thoroughly, every spot, until all I see is nothing but a flat, textured surface. There's no shiny spots, no nothing. As you can see on this one, it is kind of shiny and slick. I'd use the orbital sander on the head gasket surface. I come over here and I do it on the side that the intake gasket is going to be on, and I'll even do it to where the exhaust ports are. I do the same thing to the bottom side of the intake gasket surfaces and make sure everything's all properly, that way everything's properly sealed once I put the gaskets and the sealant down. What I do also is I make sure after I sand everything, I blow everything out with high pressure hose. I use my 22-gallon air compressor in one of these. But even if you use compressed air, you're still going to have some residue left on the surface.
US Kids
Hold on, the radio popped up. Anyway, what I do is I go over the surface, every little nook and cranny really good, and then I take microfiber cloths only, brand new, or washed without any fabric softener. You don't want to ever use fabric softener in with microfiber sheet or cloths, because it will not soak up water or other stuff, grease, whatever. It'll just, anyway, I take carbon choke cleaner, brake cleaner, whatever you want to do. Probably brake cleaner is probably the best in the spray can. Go over this surface and wipe real good once. Use another clean spot on the rag, spray the rag down, wipe the gasket surfaces after you've used the sander thoroughly until you're not getting anything left on the rag. Remember, cleanliness is next to godliness. Anyway, you want to pretend that like you're in a some type of lab where everything's got to be dust free and whatnot. Anyway, I have done this process. Yeah, it seems some people may say it's overkill, maybe it takes too long, whatever, but I know for a fact that when I do this, I've done this to my 318 in my truck, I've done it to the Slant 6 that's in my Dart, and before I put the 318 in my truck, it had a 360, and I did the same thing with the 360, and I've done this to other motors, and I've not had one head gasket issue or compression issue as far as gaskets are concerned, or leaks, especially on intake or whatever it may be. As you could tell, I got my Walmart LED shop light shining down on top of the toolbox As you can see the rough. It's not super rough, but you can see the rough kind of circuit swirl pattern down on the gasket surface. I went around each spot, especially if it's a water jacket hole. Made sure I got everything down to where there's no high spots possibly, or maybe there might be like a little shiny line here where the steel part of the gasket is, the ring. I got around here and went around everything around over here. I do that. I just got done doing this one because I'm going to get ready to lap the valves, and I'll have rags and microfiber rags and brake fluid cleaner and all that stuff. Anyway, to get all this done, what I like to do is I'll take a cheap roll of painter's tape or duct tape, go over the gasket surface, cover the heads up, and also a little tech tip from an auto body guy. When you're painting engine blocks, heads, whatever, make sure you get in here and sand the edges and the points, anything that might have an edge or whatever, especially along here. Just kind of, if you're not using an orbital DA, use a rolled up piece of sandpaper and just go along the edges. I learned from that. I learned my mistake for doing that, because even up around here, what'll happen is you'll get this head all thoroughly prepped, cleaned, whatever. Come in here, you'll paint all this stuff, you let it dry really good and cure. Go to take the head, put it on the engine. Maybe you didn't get the head squared away on the head perfectly at the first shot, whatever. Maybe you got to put something on, and what's the first thing that happens? Right here along these edges, something bumps the edge, and all of a sudden you got a paint chip or a flake of brand new paint to just come off the head, because the edges didn't get sanded on, because it was a slick surface, a slick casting surface. Anyway, do that, and the paint will anchor a lot better to the head or whatever part you. But anyway, another thing about heads, I still got to put a freeze plug on this side. I already did this side. Anyway, never use, just don't tap them in dry, and don't tap them in with RTV sealant. They've been known to pop out under heat and pressure, cold and pressure, in case you had water in there and they freeze up, they pop out. I mean, but it's mainly to do with the heat and the pressure, not really the cold or anything like that, with the water freezing up in the heads or anything, because you're supposed to use coolant. Anyway, even in the how to rebuild and modify slant sixes, they talk about in there about using the 3M yellow weather stripping adhesive. Put some around inside here, but you got to make sure the surface is prepped down the bare metal. Scrub it with 150 grit, clean it up, wipe it out real good with a good clean microfiber cloth and some carbon choke cleaner. Put a little bit of the weather stripping adhesive on the outside of the freeze plug itself. Tap them in. When I do that, I'll usually leave the head off and I'll put a fan on, like a box fan. I'll let the air blow down through all the passageways, and then the air eventually works its way around on the back side of the freeze plug. And if there's sealant on the back side of the freeze plug, it'll help it cure quicker. I do that to the block. I'll put a fan in front of the block, especially if I got the block tilted at an angle for the air to get down through the coolant ports. It just helps push fresh air down through there and helps the sealant cure from inside and out. Anyway, We can't really think of anything else on these heads besides, you know, making sure you chase the threads and make sure they're good and clean, like on the engine block and all that stuff too. The other thing I'm going to do too is on the block, what I like to do is I'll take rags, tape, whatever, I'll seal up the valley area where the lifters are on the block. Then what I do is on the block itself, I'll lower the piston in one cylinder as far as the lowest it'll go. And then what I do is I stuff a bunch of oily rags in there, pack it in there, get it and press it down. And then what I do is I'll take that orbital DA, and I might put a cloth over this side, and take that orbital DA and I'll sand the top of that block, the head gasket surface on the block. And when it gets that done, I blow everything off, go to the next cylinder, do that. I do that until I get the whole entire top of the block done. Go to the other side, do vice versa. Come back, like I said, repeat with the clean rag, the clean microfiber cloth, and the carbon choke cleaner or brake cleaner, whatever you want to use, till nothing comes off of the surface of the block where the head gasket's going to go. That way you're not getting stuff down on top of the piston or around the rings or on the cylinder wall, sticking with any grit, microscopic little metal fibers, anything like that. Anyway, so that means, especially if you're going to use we're going to be using the, hold on a minute. We will be using these Permatex coated head gaskets. What that does, when I prep the gasket surface like I do, it'll help this stuff, when it's compressed, it'll help anchor the gasket to the gasket surface better, instead of having a slick surface for the possible of a gasket to warp under pressure, being torqued down, and so there won't be any weak spots that the gasket will have to stay and be anchored to. Anyway, some people may think this is overkill, whatever, but it's always worked for me. But anyway, enough about this. Hope you enjoyed the video. I got to get back to work. Bye.